still hear the shooting.
So he was still shooting as you were crawling out. That would be several minutes long.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it's just so horrifying, Chris. Thank you very much. I want to go to another eyewitness now. Louis Bourbano is also with us right now. Louis, you were inside the club as well?
Yes, George. I was inside one of the main bars in the front when you turn in at first, towards the end, cashing out around 2:05, no later than that.
So you're right there in the front of the club. Where was the shooting coming from?
The entrance was to my right. I was at the far end, to the left of the bar with my best friend and a couple people we had seen and known and recognized. It came to the far right. There is I guess a crest or a crevice where the entrance happens. You have to go through there. There's a mini hallway that enters to my bar, well, the bar I was in, and then the main dance floor. But at that point in time, when everything was going off, we couldn't even tell where it was coming, whether it was coming towards us, towards somewhere else. It just got louder and louder. And at first we thought it was a DJ playing, adding a little gunshots, 4 shots into the set list, as many DJs do, which they should stop doing that after today for sure, because everyone got confused. But past 4, we realized there was something different, and then it was a domino effect of people just ducking their heads left and right, screaming. I don't remember screaming. I don't even remember breathing. I just remember dragging my best friend down, dragging this girl down who was looking for her sister, and then just slipping, and what was already, you can imagine, everything from drinks on the floor to blood.
So were there victims actually inside that side bar where you were, or was it all in the main dance floor?
To be honest, George, I could not tell. It started with those 4 gunshots. They got louder, they got closer. It was going on continuously, as I think Chris said. As we were, there was a break after about 10 to 20 gunshots. There was a break of like 10 seconds, which then we started jetting towards this little side exit of the side stage. And then the shooting continued continuously, loud. It was definitely no small gun, that's for sure. And then we jetted out to the back when the volume of the gunshot started getting closer and louder.
Was it like a machine gun, or was it one shot at a time?
No, it was not one shot at a time. It was not. If it was one shot at a time, I would have heard only probably 8 rounds, and that was it. And I heard at least 20 to 30 by the time I got out. By the time I had to help some kid who collapsed on the floor, and I lost my shirt, but only because I used it as a turn-again. Two of my shirts as turn-agains for this poor gentleman, who I'm praying everyone, especially him, is going to make it through, who had lost half his arm. And then this other guy who was walking around with a bullet in his leg, and he had no idea it was sticking out. And the bullet, I kid you not, was about this big, the size of your finger. And he had no clue because of the adrenaline, and he was too busy looking for, I think, a family member who was still inside.
So you stayed inside, were trying to help some of the victims before you left out. How many minutes were you inside after the shooting began?
It seemed like an hour, but no more than a minute and a half. And then we just started pushing and pushing. And as soon as we got that 10-second break, we went to this alleyway, which led for only employees. And we had tried, me and this random guy, tried blocking the door. Because at that point, like I said, the bullets were getting louder and closer. So we blocked this door, and we did hear banging. And I pray it wasn't anyone trying to escape, because I would forever feel guilty. But at that point, there was about 20 people in front of us, crammed in this little alleyway with a big hole in one of the fences, and just trying to topple over, just trying to escape, just run.
So you all kept trying to get out of there as quickly as you possibly could. But after you got out, the shooting continued?
As we got further out, it was continuing. At that point in time, that's when I had seen this gentleman collapse, and he was still really close to the building. I just picked him up and I just dragged him. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Unbeknownst to me, his arm was in half and split, and he had a gash on his side. Dragged him as far as I could, and then an undercover cop, believe it or not, who I believe was the one who dispatched and called it in. We were just wrapping up and trying to take care of him, but at that point I didn't hear anything. Everything went numb and very fuzzy and just very distant, just in awe. And I look back at everything. I'm looking at my clothes, and like I had lost my shirt, obviously, like I said, but You know, I have a really, really bad memory that I'm wearing right now. I haven't even gotten a chance to get a hold of myself or anything.
Well, I can only imagine what you're going through, and for you to have the presence of mind to be able to help at least some of those victims is remarkable in and of itself. You heard the gunshots, you heard the burst of gunfire. Did you ever see the gunman at all?
No, sir. And even if he were to enter the room, I was already on the floor sliding. We were just sliding on the floor at that point, trying to push. No contact, no eye contact. I didn't even want to at that point. Why would I want to give them the satisfaction of looking in their eyes, if anything? So.
But you're clear. Just one gunman. You only heard the shots from the one rifle, as far as you could tell.
Yeah, no, it was one gunman. It sounded like two, but then I realized that wasn't. That was just a big machine gun of some sort, or with some severe power.
And give us a sense of the scale of this club. You said about 20 people were in this alleyway after you got out of the small bar. You had the big dance floor in the middle. We've heard other reports of hostages who were being held in other parts of the club. Give us a sense of the layout here and where that might have been.
At least in the front bar, it's not that big, maybe probably 40 feet in length, probably about 20 feet wide. That was packed with over 100 people as it was. At that point, just jet out. The main dance floor was already kind of clearing out. People were going to their bars, paying off their tabs. They made an announcement, you know, close out your checks, last call for drinks. And so it seemed like everyone was gravitating either towards the back side. Like I said, I wasn't in the main bar anymore. We had just moved to the front bar to collect our checks at around 2 o'clock. And then that's when we side glass door to get into the bar where we were at. And then...
And when you left, when you left the bar, where were you in relation to the bar? How far away were you, and how long did you remain on scene?
Once we left the whole club, is that what you're asking? As soon as we jet, I threw myself through that hole in the fence, ran around, helped. I was probably still around helping out 10, 15 minutes. The paramedics came, and then from there, they took over. That's when the cops said, okay, let's go. Time to go now, you know, and just go, go, go. So we went about a block down, and then we heard the controlled explosion hours later, and then we heard 2 more explosions, and we heard 1 gunshot, followed by the takedown, of course, which was, at that point, the officers right next to us told us, duck, 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 behind the ledge, and then they moved us behind a huge fire truck.
And after that takedown, which was apparently a little after 5 a.m., down there in Orlando, did you see any of the rescued hostages leave the site?
No, sir. At that point, they, we were there for a little bit behind this fire truck. We heard the takedown. We waited about 30 minutes. We walked a couple blocks around, escorted by police, greeted by over 150 minimum police officers from different counties in Florida. And then little by little, hostages were coming through. One of our longtime bartenders, a good friend, was hiding in a small closet with about 8 to 10 people in a small little fitting room, you know, closet, and they were starting to make their way. And then from there, OPD transported us to a bus in which we went to downtown to headquarters, and we had to make our statements.
Were you able to talk to that bartender who was in the small room with other hostages?
Yes, sir. His name is Axel. He's they were just, he said he only thought it was only a few of them at one point, and then people little by little, as time was going on, were just popping out in different parts of the bar, of the fitting room. And then he said at one point he even got behind the door, ready to just drop down a bar stool on whoever was to walk in, trying to do something. Because at that point, you know, you either run or you try to make something happen to try to save as many as you can. So,
do you have any idea how many people the club holds, or how many people were in the club at 2 a.m. when you were there?
We had walked in, actually, and I had told my best friend and I were talking, and we said, wow, for a good night, you know, it's not that packed, it's not that dead, it's actually very quiet, but really, really lively, great energy. Normally, there's always little altercations. I would say definitely a couple hundred. I've seen that club at max capacity where elbow to elbow you're pushing through just to get to the restroom or to the drinks or anything. There was probably at least a couple hundred for sure, 200 to 300 I would think, spread out throughout the front bar, the back patio, the main floor. So it's a great layout. They had just remodeled it. They made it look really, really wonderful. It's been a while since I've been there. And then great people, more people were trickling in as the night was going on, believe it or not.
Well, Louis, we're glad you're okay. We're sorry for all the friends you lost last night, but thank you for sharing your time with us now and being able to tell us what happened from inside that club. Thanks very much.
Thank you, George.
I want to bring in Congressman Peter King now from the Homeland Security Committee. He's joining us as well. And hard to wrap your head around this, Congressman King, the worst mass shooting now in American history. We are learning more, though, about who did it. What more have you been able to learn since the shooting happened?
Well, you know, like others, I was given his name. I believe his family's from Afghanistan. He does have, I can't go any further than this, but he does have experience in the use of weapons. Again, it is a tragedy, obviously a tragedy. And I think right now the FBI has to be concerned whether or not, you know, there are any other conspirators, whether or not this is part of an overall plan. Apparently there's no evidence on that yet, but they really, you know, they can't rule that out. Was he a lone wolf? Was he inspired? Was he directed? You know, does he have connections with Islamist groups? Was the main emphasis Islamist terror, or was it also tied into an anti-gay bigotry? So all of this, again, this is so early on in the investigation. They've gotten a lot of information, but this will go on for quite a while, not just for the historical record of how and why it happened, but also to make sure that it's not part of anything further that, you know, that's out there that could be happening. But
to be clear right now, they're treating it as a domestic terror incident, even though they believe right now, based on the evidence they have, that he acted alone. But as you said, they haven't been able to determine whether this was a hate crime, whether it was inspired by some kind of radical Islamic ideology or some other motivation.
Yeah, and that has to be part of it. I mean, that is a central part, as to find out, was he acting alone? Was he acting, you know, does he have social media connections with ISIS or any other affiliated groups, or is he just known to be anti-gay, or is he a psychotic? So all of that has to be, again, fully examined and looked at. I think the fact that early on, though, that the FBI official did say that they were strongly considering, or he certainly mentioned about connections to Islamist terrorism, that seems to be, where they are leaning. But again, it is early on.
And Congressman, based on your experience on the Homeland Security Committee, when something like this happens, even without any concrete indications that it might have been part of a broader plot, what kind of alerts will be put out now throughout the country, throughout the state of Florida?
Oh, they will. This will be a high alert. They will be contacting, not just in Florida, every police department in the country, every law enforcement agency will be contacted by the FBI, and give them any information or any lead that they think could show others involved. Again, they will find out where he traveled to, who he's been in contact with. Has he been in contact with people in other states? Has he been in contact with people overseas? They will try to find out if there were explosives involved, where he purchased those explosives, where he purchased the weapons. Again, it's just there's so many factors here to be looked into, and usually in these cases, 99 out of 100 may lead nowhere, but it's the one that they have to be concerned about.
Okay, Congressman Peter King, thanks very much again. We are learning more about the shooter. His name is Omar Mateen. He's 29 years old, a U.S. citizen, born to parents from Afghanistan, lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I want to go back to Florida right now. Congressman Alan Grayson is on the ground in Orlando this morning. Such devastating news for your city, Congressman. Our condolences to you and your community.
It's a sad, sad day for all of us.
And Congressman, to add on what we've been talking about here, we do know now 50 dead, at least 53 injured. What can you tell us about what's going on now, both on the scene and in those trauma centers where they're tending to the injured?
On the scene, there was so much blood and so much havoc that they're still clearing it away. They're almost done with that. The victims have been taken to the hospital. There were 6 trauma surgeons working to save lives all through the night. That work still continues, and family members are now gathering at the hospital to try to provide some kind of relief and support for those who made it through.
The police have said that the shooter, Omar Mateen, came from outside of Orlando, drove in from outside of Orlando. There was some initial concern that in addition to the assault weapon and handgun that he had, that he might have had explosive devices. That's now been ruled out. They've also gone into his car. But have they been able to give you any more information about the shooter or about his motivations?
Well, listen, he lives 2 hours away from Orlando. He drove 2 hours in order to go to a gay nightclub and to kill people. I think that speaks for itself.
So you believe this club was targeted because it's a gay nightclub?
It seems very likely to me.
Okay, Congressman Grayson, thanks very much for your time this morning. I know we'll come back, and for now, for everyone just joining us right now, it's a little after 11 o'clock here on the East Coast. We've been covering this deadly shooting, the worst mass shooting in American history that unfolded overnight in Orlando, Florida, at the Pulse nightclub. Shortly after 2 a.m., a gunman entered the scene, entered that nightclub, began shooting. We've heard from eyewitnesses on the scene. You see it right there. Took hostages for the next 3 hours. And then 3 hours later, police SWAT teams went in to end the situation. But when it was done, 50 dead, 53 injured on the scene in Orlando, Florida. I want to bring in Pierre Thomas, our senior justice correspondent. Pierre, let's go through what we know now about the shooter and how this unfolded overnight. Omar Mateen, 29 years old.
29 years old, parents from Afghanistan. Law enforcement officials said there were initial indications of perhaps jihadist leanings, but again, they emphasize it's very early in the investigation. They're also looking at the possibility that this could be a hate crime. Law enforcement officials will also be looking at his background. I'm being told that every law enforcement agency and also every intelligence agency is being asked to check its data files to find out if they have any information about this suspect. Top law enforcement officials in the country, from the Attorney General to the FBI Director, Homeland Security Secretary, being briefed about this morning, George. They want to get a handle on this because the level of the death, they know that these mass shootings are happening on such a regular basis. They want to get as much information as they can on this one to put it in some perspective to see why this keeps happening.